Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the July 27th meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals for the Town of Ossining. My name is Sal Carrera, Chairman, and joining me this evening are members of the Zoning Board of Appeals, Town Attorney, Building Inspector. We have one hearing, which is a continuation this evening. For the record, please, everyone introduce yourselves.
Sandy Nelly, Secretary.
John
David
Hamilton.
O'Neill, member.
James Blair, member.
David Whitlinger, member.
Christy Adana, attorney.
David Krieger, member.
Tom? Tom Wills?
Tom Wills, alternate.
Thank you. Notice is hereby given that a continuation of the public hearing of the Town of Ossining Zoning Board of Appeals will be held on Monday, July 27th, 2020 at 7:30 p.m. This meeting will be held via video conferencing pursuant to Governor's Executive Order 202.1 dated March 12, 2020, and Executive Order 202.15 dated April 9, 2020, and subsequently extended. Members of the public can join the meeting via computer or mobile app on Zoom using the link below, which basically is meeting ID number for Zoom 820-7502-5102. Since this is a continuation, I'm just going to go over some of the facts that we can read into the minutes. The hearing on this application of Bethany Arts Community BAC 40 Somerstown Road, Ossining, New York, in accordance with the Town of Ossining Zoning Code, Section 200-7B, parenthesis 2, Section 200-45, parenthesis C, for a special permit. Bethany Arts Community BAC, in parentheses, is seeking an amendment to their special permit approval to include additional activities and programs that would take place outdoors on the property. I'm going to read you 10 of the original application. Of the past 2 weeks, we have received a number of updates, and we'll want a better explanation of that as time goes on from the applicant or its representatives. Number 1 was summer camps designed with creativity. Number 2, an outdoor children's theater camp. Number 3, Theater O, Ossining Schools Theater Group. Number 4, River Fund, an organization on the front lines of poverty in Queens, getting children out of the city. Number 5, use of walking trails for outdoor art exhibits, which my understanding has been removed. Number 6, collaborate with eco-friendly organizations to create awareness of the environment. Again, I've been made aware that has also been taken out. Number 7, become part of a trail system leading from Ryder Park through Bethany to connect to the Briarcliff, Peekskill Trail, and T-Town Reservation. Again, my understanding that has been taken out. Number 8, Art, Oktoberfest, and interactive artistic experience. 9, beehives and community gardens. My understanding, beehives has been removed. I'll get to that in a few minutes. And outdoor school activities. In addition, over the past week or so, we've had an additional 4 items, which I'd like to have an explanation from the applicant, is that they would like to have, unless I misunderstood it and so did everyone else, an annual square dance out by the barn, no longer standing and in the parking lot, volleyball games and other similar activities, cider pressing. Apparently there used to be an old cider press on the property. They picked apples at a nearby orchard. And the orientation and reunion class would be held, cookouts, dances, and picnics outside. We'll get into that in a few minutes and whether or not those are additional wish lists or it was just a information that what the nuns used to do. There's going to be some additional requirements this evening. Number one is that we will listen to the applicant. They'll have as much time as they want to bring us completely up to date. Number two is that the biggest change will be with regards to anybody calling in or on the Zoom meeting, that everyone will have basically a 3-minute period of time to state whatever you want to state. And this is due to the fact that even though I consider it to be very generous at the last meeting, we had complaints that we cut people short, especially those that were in favor of this application. So in order to get around that, 3 minutes, and our secretary, Sandy, will be timing it and put you on mute after 3 minutes. Moving forward, at this time, I do not know, depending on how long this evening goes, whether or not a decision will be reached other than taking in additional information. I'm hoping that the public information part of this will not be extended beyond this evening. And either tonight or at another meeting, we can discuss what the application that the board is going to discuss and render decisions on. So that being said, I'd like to give a brief explanation. A few years ago, BAC came to us with regards to their philanthropic arts community, and this board gave a special permit for all indoor activities. This application now is basically for numerous outdoor activities to take place. And what I'd like to do is have the applicant or their representatives go over the list that was sent in with the additions and the ones that have been taken out. The board members will be the first to ask the questions and give comments. Then we will open it up to the members that have called in via Zoom or telephone. I do have a person that could not do a Zoom and sent in a number of questions that we'll try to answer this evening. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to the applicant and bring us completely up to date of what their new application entails for everyone to understand. Mr. Lyons or representative?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. I'm David Lyons, founder and executive director of the Bethany Arts Community. To start with, the 4 items, yes, they were in fact done previously by the lay missionaries at Mary Knoll. And what I was trying to express was the low impact activities have been going on for quite some time. We were not planning any square dances. Cider presses, which they had an existing orchard, is where I believe they pulled their apples from. Those were really just examples of what was done previously and trying to compare it to what we hope to do in the future. So an update as of July 15th, the short story is that all activities out on the trail have been brought back into the open area, starting at the tree line, which is the east of the orchard, moving to 133, and then north and south within 100, past 100-foot buffer zone on each side where the neighbors Cooper and Tavano Road are. Some of the things we eliminated was the larger gardens in the back, the outdoor classrooms, the sitting areas, any sort of activities that, excuse me? Any sort of activities that would have gone on on the trail have now been moved into the orchard. There's a slight
I
area
didn't even know there was an
close-
orchard back there.
close to the orchard that we call the Quidditch pitch, and it's for just for identification purposes. It is just off the driveway and parking lot. Any activities on that field and within the orchard would be past the 100-foot buffer zone on the Tavano Road area. We would also like to incorporate, which is now sculpture area in the front of the building, incorporate that more into a outdoor area for the camps to use within the tree line. Again, everything past the 100-foot buffer zone. As you expressed, the walking trails from Ryder Park were removed. We won't be having gardens, so there'll be no need to work with an eco-friendly organizations out there. The trail system, again, the outdoor exhibits that we hope to put on the trails have also been brought back onto the open area of the property, the orchard, the Quidditch pitch, and the front yard. Oktoberfest would happen all within that area. There would be no encroachment out into the woods or on the trail itself. It would all happen within the orchard, the Quidditch pitch. Within the building, slightly outside the building, there's a small patio right outside the cafeteria. There's a small garden. And we also have some space in like a garage that might be used for, say, a pottery person coming in. It would be easy access for people to come and go. The outdoor after-school programs we would like to continue. Again, utilizing the space would be very helpful. Talking about the bees, we have removed them from this application and put them on a separate application, looking for a variance from the zoning board. That the paperwork was sent in on the 13th, and the check was delivered today with a hard copy of the application. Again, the vegetable gardens are going to be removed from the area in the woods to raised beds in between the orchard that already exists on the property. And again, the orchard that's there now was replaced from an existing orchard that was on its last legs previously when the lay missionaries had it. Is there any specific questions that I failed to cover?
What I would like to do, thank you so much for that presentation. It brings a little better understanding of what we're doing this evening. So I want to make sure that annual square dance, volleyball, cider pressing, orientation, reunion classes, cookout dances, picnics outside are off the table. That was just give us an idea of what the nuns did previously.
Correct.
Thank you. That's number one. Okay, so this evening,
Could you put up, David, are you able to show your revised site plan? I think that would be really helpful.
excuse me, this is not open to the public yet.
Okay.
And if anybody does speak, they give their name and address. When we open it to the public, I'll let you all know. Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Lyons, we're going to be concentrating on the following this evening. Summer camps designed with creativity, an outdoor children's theater camp, Theater O, Ossining School Theater Group, River Fund, an organization on the front lines of poverty in Queens, getting children out of the city, Art Oktoberfest, and outdoor school programs. Is that correct?
Yes.
And the bees are on a separate application with
Correct.
regards to a use variance?
Correct.
Okay. John Hamilton? John?
Yes. Did I get it? Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
John, there's an application in for bees, okay, that Mr. Lyons has sent in, so we're taking it off of this application. I'm made to understand that the town board is considering making bees allowed, okay, under the ordinance in the near future. So I have two questions for you. Number one is that how many other people in the town have asked for bees in their gardens or on their property?
To date, none.
Okay, that's number one. Number two is that since this is an ongoing application with regards to, I have to assume he's doing a use variance. I don't know how long it's going to take for the town board to say yay or nay with regards to the bees. Where does that put his current grove of bees at the site?
Well, we had a zoning board application submitted, but we needed additional information. We sent it back and asked for the additional information, and I told them to get it in by a certain date, which they did not. So from what I understand, they have put it in now. I'd have to check with the office. In the meantime, I have issued a notice of violation since the town has to show that they are aware of this and that they know it's a violation of the ordinance. We have given them 30 days to correct the problem, correction being either get a zoning board variance or remove the bees unless the town within 30 days was to pass a new ordinance. So that's where it stands right now.
Okay, thank you. Back to Mr. Lyons. Are there any other activities going on within your buildings that basically are against the special permit and or town ordinances similar to the Bigfoot Creamery that used to manufacture at that site that moved out?
The Bigfoot Creamery used our kitchen, and our process with the planning board of Ossining allows us to do that. They are an artisanal ice cream. They make handmade, specially made ice cream. This is all part of not only helping the community, but helping somebody explore their artistic ability. And this was all part of the, excuse me, planning board application that we submitted several years ago.
Okay, so not knowing any of that, and I'm not an attorney, is that manufacturing of ice cream, for consumer use is a manufacturing, and that's normally in a GB zone, not in a residential R40. So that's something, even though I know that they're no longer there, is that as far as I am concerned, and I figure they use your kitchen, and John, correct me if I'm wrong, if it was for consumption by outside, that's manufacturing, and even though it's now down on a piece of property that the town owns down on the waterfront, it's just that I can't see the planning department giving you permission when it's not allowed in the zoning for manufacturing. But as long as there's no other activities going on at your site right now, that's all I'm concerned with right now.
We have nothing else going on at this time.
Okay, so let's get down to the basics. Out of all the activities that you have listed here, what activities are philanthropic and free to anybody and everybody, if any?
Okay. For the summer camp, for the outdoor theater camp, for Theater O, for River Fund. River Fund, as you know, is bringing children up. But for all of those four people, we provide many scholarships that allow people, children, who are not otherwise able to participate in these activities.
You go ahead.
No, please. I was going to move on to outdoor school activities would be helping out the school district. Artoberfest would be trying to explore different arts at a low cost as possible. Materials cost money, electricity costs money, so nothing can be done completely for free. But for the many, the one after school program we produced, out of the 40 children who participated from Ossining, 36 of them got scholarshiped. And that has been our main focus, is to make things as free and as inexpensive as possible. Being a not-for-profit does not mean you don't make money. It means you don't make a profit. And I can assure you we've been running at a deficit for quite some time.
So let's go back to that. Let's go back to the summer camp, the Theater O. We'll leave River Fund out. And I know that last meeting we discussed, you gave 10, 15 scholarships out, which is admirable. The question I have is that, are you subletting the space to these individual groups? Are they on your payroll? Are they separate entity business people that are coming in and doing their thing?
They are separate entities that pay a rental fee.
Okay, so basically they're an outside business coming in and renting your space to put on their activities, putting aside the laudable summer camps and the kids coming up and giving them scholarships. This is a business that you're subletting space out for all of these other outside companies to come in and use your space. That's all I want to know.
We are providing space and renting space to arts-based organizations and to the local community as needed and necessary, such as the Rotary Club, Ossining Matters, the school district, the Ossining Arts Council, the Ossining Arts Committee. These are all within our purview to do inside the building.
We have absolutely no problem what you do on the inside of the building, because we gave you a special permit for all indoor activities. We're talking about what's going on outside. Let's talk about the after-school activities.
So, sorry, Sal?
Yes?
Sal, this is Dave. Can I interrupt for a
Yep, I
second?
can see you, sure.
Yeah. Christy, could you comment on, I'm just trying to get a clarification here on process and what we're trying to understand. So we're trying to understand usage. The business behind the usage, is that within the ZBA's purview?
Well, the use is what the ZBA is, what's before you right now. You're being asked to look at different uses that fall within this special permit use of what was originally permitted, which was non-for-profit philanthropic institution catering to the arts. So what the applicant is now proposing is a variety of new additional uses. And so they're asking for an amended special permit. And so that's what this board is looking at, because for the special permit, the uses have to satisfy certain criteria in the code to ensure there aren't going to be any impacts. And so the first part of the analysis is whether the uses fit within that special permit use, such that they're actually allowed pursuant to this special permit, and then whether those uses satisfy the statutory criteria for the board to grant a special permit for them.
Okay,
I'm sorry. Sorry, this is JJ Leitner, counsel to BAC. If you want to talk about legal issues, regarding the 501c3 philanthropic purposes, I'm happy to speak to that. I didn't want to interrupt. I know you don't want this to be open to, the outside public right now, but I did want to say that if you want to speak to that, I can answer those questions. And particularly regarding the, the rents and uses by other nonprofit organizations.
I got my answer. Are you okay now, David?
Well, no, I guess, I think that, well, I guess if we're analyzing the uses that are on what David Lyons had submitted in those usages, I understand that. If we're trying to explore the business model behind that and evaluate that as a use, that I don't understand. So I'm trying to see if Christy can clarify that we're evaluating the usages, what the people on the property will and will not be doing. What the financial arrangements are behind that is not our purview. Is that correct?
Well, I think it's relevant to the oversight and the special permit because you're granting the special permit to Bethany. So ultimately, they're the ones that are responsible for what is happening on that property. So if they're bringing in third parties to run these organizations and these different events, that's certainly relevant, but ultimately it's the property owner, Bethany, that is accountable to the board to comply with this permit.
Yes, okay. But what the financial arrangements are between those entities is not within the purview of the ZBA. It's what the usage, what those third parties might be doing on the property is certainly within the purview of the ZBA. That's what we're all here to discussing. But those financial arrangements or business constructs, that's not within our, I would hope that's not within our scope of approval, because that's not what we're.
Well, as it's come up, they are defined as a not-for-profit, and as the applicant has explained, that doesn't necessarily don't make any money because you have to be able to operate. But I think it's, I think the point of you want to make sure that they're a nonprofit because that's what they're presenting as and that's their use.
I see. Okay.
But beyond that, I see what you're saying, and I generally agree.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, if you want to talk about the nonprofit status, I'm happy to talk about it. I don't want to interrupt and get out of turn, but if you want to talk about that and the validity of it, I can talk about that.
The question that I had, which was answered, and as Chrissy said, is that, this falls under BAC. This falls under what the original permit was given for all indoor activities. Now these are all outdoor activities by subcontractors subletting space from a not-for-profit. And believe me, I fully understand you have to pay your bills and you have to have income coming in besides your philanthropic, donors. Is that the question was asked? I received my answer, which I thought was true, is that this space for all of these others that are coming in, whether they are not-for-profit or not, these other companies that are coming in are basically subletting space from BAC. That's all I wanted to get to, and I got my answer with regards to that. At this time, I'll pass it off to some other board members. I'll come back with some additional questions as we move forward. Board members, anybody have any questions or comments?
Yeah, I have questions to David O'Neill. Looking at the site plan that was submitted in the package that we received, I appreciate the fact that the activities were consolidated into certain areas of the site, generally in close proximity to the existing building. I have a question about the food trucks. The site plan shows 4 food trucks, which are referenced in kind of the narrative description that was supplied. And I was wondering what determined the location of the food trucks on the site plan and the particular location that they're shown.
Because there is an existing driveway. There was another structure pre-Bethany Arts Community further down on the property, and this was the driveway leading to it. And so I just thought it was a natural space to put the food trucks there. They would be on the east side facing west, so they would sort of be shielded. The activity at the food truck would be shielded from the neighbors on Cooper. but mainly because the driveway was there and it's a good sturdy ground to put a truck on. Something like that can easily be moved to another part of the parking lot. Just out of planning purposes, it looked like a good place to put them.
A follow-up question with regards to the food trucks. Why are there 4 food trucks? How many people do you expect at one time at that site, whether it's for Oktoberfest or any other time that food trucks would be there?
I do believe that we had said 2 to 4 food trucks, counting on something going forward in the future and possibly needing a little bit more variety. So to begin with, we would only probably bring in 2 food trucks, 3 at the most. The amount of people that we would expect would be approximately 50 people an hour over a 6-hour period. So a total of 300 people. And it would not be a situation, Oktoberfest would not be a situation where that you would stay there all day. You would come, you would enjoy some of the activities. We had people there for 15 minutes to 45 minutes. I think one of the longer people was there for an hour last year. So the amount of people would be approximately 50 an hour.
Okay. David O'Neill, any other questions or follow-up?
Yeah, and then just a little bit more description on the temporary stage. Is that something that's disassembled after each activity, or just something that stays there all the time, but not necessarily permanent in nature?
It would, for Oktoberfest, it would be put up in the morning, possibly the evening before, and then taken down the day of after Oktoberfest is over. For the outdoor theater camp during the summer, it would be up for approximately 8 days because they would be using it every day for a week. So, you know, putting it up, taking it down on either side. Again, it would only be 2 feet off the ground, maybe less, 1.5 feet, laying flat, pretty unobtrusive.
Thank you.
Jim Blair? Jim?
I have questions when you're ready, Sal.
Jim, go ahead. You have any questions, comments?
I do. Just one quick question on the stage. David, just to clarify the record, the size of this stage, so-called, is 6 feet by 9 feet. Is that correct?
I would have to, that seems kind of small for a stage. I'd have to double check if that was a typo or not, but it would be, I would imagine that it would be maybe 12 by 16.
Okay, well, that's what I was wondering too, because 6 by 9 is a stool.
Yeah, I apologize for that if that was put in there. That was completely a typo and a overlooked on my end. Again, it's not going to be a rock and roll Madison Square Garden stage. It's going to be a stage for a few kids, 1 or 2 people. When we had the African dance in our rehearsal space last year, it was Gladys Lowe led the class. She would be the one on stage and everyone else would be on the grass in front of her. So it would be really not, it would not be a Live Aid concert. It would just be a...
Understood. Thank you. Next, just looking forward a bit in this process, you specified 50 people, 50 campers in a number of places in your application. How did you arrive at that number, And what is your willingness to reduce that number?
The way I arrived at that number is presently what we had done in the past is that we had the Camp of Witchcraft and Wizardry, and that was a total of 32 kids. And that number was come by so that the experience would not be too watered down for the children. So we actually kept it artificially low. It was presented in the beginning for it to be 40 kids, and I was not comfortable because of the loss of the message. The reason why I'm asking for 50 is that in the future, we may not just be doing a Camp of Witchcraft and Wizardry. It would be great to do more of a arts based camp all around that would include theater and performance as well as other things, and just being able to not have to come back to the board and ask for 50 kids on campus. The number of 50 kids, and I'm not sure if you got an opportunity to come by and take a look at the property, is well within accommodating 50 kids in camp type of atmosphere where you're going to be in small groups. You know, to break it in, even if you did it into 5 groups of 10, again, I don't want the message being lost, so I don't want it that big to begin with. I wouldn't want it more than 50 people, no matter how popular or successful we were.
Okay. Just to contextualize my question, given the level of concern voiced by neighbors, particularly in the area of noise, and I take it sort of general activity on the property. There were a number of references made at our hearing a couple of weeks ago to those factors, and the number 50 came up in passing, you know, informally, and in an effort to minimize those objections, I'm suggesting that we may want to consider reducing that number, at least for a period of time.
I would be more than glad to reduce that number to 40 for a period of time. I don't expect us to get much bigger than that in the near future. And when I say the near future, I'm looking at the next 3 to 5 years. If we were to become that popular before then, and I thought it was appropriate, I would ask that the board allow me to return to ask for the additional 10 students at a future meeting. But if I need to reduce the experience for 10 children from either local or, you know, underprivileged, I will be more than glad to do that for the benefit of the whole. I don't.
Understood. Thank you.
With regards to that number of coming down, which is admirable, and we appreciate that, especially from a noise level. But, you know, moving to the future, going and coming down from 50 children to, say, 30 children, because of the potential of a noise problem. And then if you're successful in coming back to this board to go up to 50 or 60, it doesn't take away the noise level at an R40 zone to have this type of usage on that piece of property. So while it may sound great now for us to take a vote on, knowing that 3 years down the line, whether you're successful or not successful, and you come in and say, I want 60 or 70 because I'm so busy, the noise level and the problem still exists.
I'm sorry you misunderstood me, Mr. Chairman, but I had said that I do not want more than 50 regardless, because it will take away from the experience that I have to offer to the children. So I would not be returning to ask for 60 or 70. I would be returning to ask for an additional 10. And quite frankly, the number of children that make that much noise in such a large area is far less than some of the neighbors when they just have a regular outing with their friends and family in their pools. It's really, I think, a little bit more blown out of proportion than it actually is, especially that we have such a large area. And we have eliminated the woods area part, which, again, I think should eliminate a great deal on some of the neighbors and the ones who were complaining about the children and the noise. So I will not be coming back asking for 60 or 70. I would ask for 50 now, knowing that we're not even near that, and that would be a growth potential.
Okay, thank you for that explanation.
Al?
David W., Jim, you still have more?
Thank you. No, I don't have more, but I just wanted to kind of put a period at the end of this sentence. My thought in reducing the number was that if David, you found reason to want to expand the number from, let's say, 30, it would give you the opportunity to present the particulars of your case, but it would also provide a forum for neighbors to register their feelings about noise at the then current level, and enable us to use our judgment as to whether expansion of the outdoor usage would be justified given their concerns. So it really is also providing a forum for the public to be heard again.
I understand that, and I'd be more than glad to lower that number to 40. Again, we're not there.
Okay, thank you.
We had 32 previously.
Okay. Jim, any additional comments or questions for now?
No, Sal.
Okay, thank you. David W.
Thank you. Okay. So just as a point of reference, some of the questions from earlier, there is a Westchester Beekeepers Society or Association. It's probably got 150 beekeepers across Westchester. I know for a fact there's at least a dozen of them in Ossining. They don't have any idea that they are in violation of any code, and they have not asked, I'm sure, for any variance to that. Help me understand a little bit on the outdoor after-school programs. Could you explain a little bit more what's going on with the school, and particularly in light of this fall and potentially a lot of limited space issues with the school?
So for practical purposes on our application, we would like to be able to utilize the outside just for not only to increase the diversity of offerings, being able to include the outsides, but right now at this particular time, being able to use the outside in assisting the school district in whatever manner possible. We are in the process of talking with the school district. It's my understanding they're trying to come up with a plan for how they are going to be moving forward, and we have offered, again, with the purview of that we need the zoning board's approval to have anything outside. But with that in mind, hopefully that this will come out in a positive light, we would be looking to work with the schools. And again, it would be within the 100-foot buffer zone, nothing between the Tavano and Cooper would be past the 100-foot buffer zone. It would be within the orchard, the Quidditch area, and the front lawn, and in and around the building itself.
Okay. All right. And could you help me understand the BAC board and governance? Help me understand, how big the board is, what that board's mission is, what that board does, and what are because the other organizations that are listed here, how do they relate to that board and perhaps, arts in general in Ossining?
Let me see if I can answer that for you. It was a little confusing. Could you ask that again? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I'm trying to understand, so the BAC is a 501c3, right?
Correct.
And so help me understand that board, what's the makeup of the board, how the board makes decisions, and it does appear to have perhaps a relationship with the Autism Arts Council. These programs, have been stated that, they have to make money, of course, but they're also heavily scholarship funded. Explain a little bit to me about the workings of the BAC.
Okay, so most of the organizations we work with or have worked with up to now have been local. I'm trying to think. There's other than having space for many of the organizations to utilize for their fundraising and outreach programming. Is really the connection that we have. With Theater O, Jessica Irons is a member of our board. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Stop it, quiet. Is a member of our board. We have 8 members at this moment. There are 6 women and 2 men. There are a variety of different skills brought into the board. We have financial hedge fund partner, Jessica Theater. We have artist Paul Wallace. Kimball Gell works in a catering capacity. And then we have Dana Minnick, who is a IT type of person. Rhonda Montanelli is a artist from Puerto Rico. Lindsay Francis is also local, and she's an artist. We hope to increase it. We hope to increase the board size to 11 in short order.
Yeah, and what is the mission of the organization?
The mission, according to our mission statement, and I don't have it memorized, is really to provide space for all different levels of artists, from the I'm not an artist person to the world-renowned artist and everybody in between. We're hoping to, through art, enhance the perception and perspective of one's vision of the world in which we live in. It's not necessarily that we want to change your mind, but we want you to sort of look at the world with a wider view from different perspectives, so that maybe you can come together and work things out. And I believe through the arts that can be achieved. It's really providing space for the creation of art for everybody.
And when you applied for the planning approval a couple of years back, could you describe what your intention was as a philanthropy?
Was really to provide a place for the arts to be created as inexpensively as possible. The main focus for me is the children. So to be able to have programming, my original idea for Bethany was to have studios that I could let artists use at a discounted rate, and part of their discounted rate would then go into the classroom and teach the children for free. And then there'd be a gallery space for everyone to show their work. So the core of Bethany is to get children to tap back into the potential that is often robbed through abusive situations or just circumstances.
Okay, and if you could, I mean, it seems like there are some great programs here, and I'm contemplating that this might be given that your board is going to change over time, the needs of the community and the arts in the community might change over time, that these might be the interesting projects that are now, but COVID might change the world completely next year. Things might change over time. If you were to contemplate up-leveling, if you will, what you're asking for here, and perhaps not ask it in a way that is a specific program, but perhaps ask it in the way that it would be in the number of people, impact, time, those kinds of things. Do you see where I'm going?
I believe so. And That's a hard question to answer because we are in such a time of unknowns and of drastic change that I would really like Bethany to be, just to be available for the needs. And a lot of times people who offer something is offering what they want to offer. I want to be able to offer what the town of Ossining needs, especially coming up, which nobody knows. So we're trying to stay flexible with what's coming, you know, to be able to increase the interaction for children by utilizing the outdoors in a socially distant manner can only be beneficial for everybody involved.
Yeah, I guess where I was going is maybe 2 years from now, the outdoor children's theater camp is not the right vehicle to accomplish the mission of the organization, but perhaps you now want to try out a program that's the culinary arts program or something like that. And so, you know, just thinking about trying to define parameters such that you would have space to be flexible, but also have it defined to the point where both the zoning board and the public would understand the parameters that you are working within. You know, so the programs might come and go over time based on what would be useful to the community or what the board might decide is most useful towards the mission, but you'd know more generalistically what parameters you're trying to live within. It doesn't strike me that, you know, what you've written here is very nice and very specific, but perhaps that might not be the right thing 2 years from now. And why would we want to be back here when really what we're trying to look at is the number of people, the number of cars, you know, the things that are externally facing.
Right. I don't want to be back here in 2 years either. That's why I'm asking for 50 kids and not 40 to give myself that opportunity to grow, but not grow too big. Again, I don't want more than 50.
Yeah.
We're going through the planning board and all of the activities that we had proposed to do with inside the building gave us a great deal of latitude and the size of our parking lot. We have a 92 spot parking lot. We have, I would grant to say, a couple of 100 feet from the street to the parking lot. So you know, there would be no backing up onto 133 would be highly unlikely. I can't imagine the scenario happening that would cause that to happen. Even working with the schools and having buses come, we could really accommodate 8 buses before it would be an issue for 133. Now, we don't want that many, and we're not expecting that many. We're thinking 2 because it would be, you know, a maximum of 50 kids. I think a bus holds 60. So, you know, it would be not a lot of, you know, traffic coming through. The size of the parking lot was based on some of the, you know, just the ideas of the amount of people that we could possibly have and not intrude on the street. You know, so there'd be no problems out on 133 and imposing on some of the other neighbors. I did my best to accommodate that.
Yeah, okay. I have no further questions, Sal.
All right, let me piggyback on a couple of things that David asked you with regards to the parking lot and the planning board. Is that the planning board gave their approval and your 92 car parking lot for all indoor activities, no outdoor activities, which basically changes the whole use of this piece of property with or without the 92 spaces that you have there. During Oktoberfest or any other festival, is whether or not you're going to have 50 people coming in and out every couple of hours. That if someone is having a great time, and I'm sure they would be, they'd be staying. So I think the planning board, when they gave those approvals and a negative, okay, on environmental and with the parking, is that was for indoor use, not for the extreme use of the outdoor. So that's something that we'll have to get back to with regards to what they may or may not have to say on how this board may or may not vote in the future. The other question,
Mr. Chairman, could you explain what extreme use means?
you're utilizing all of the outside property as your new plan shows versus all indoor activities that was given to you by a special permit.
Okay, I would hesitate to describe.
I mean, there is a complete delineation with regards to indoor activities that really does not affect the R40 zone because it's done indoor. And since I was on the board when we gave this approval, all of the uses that you had with regards to the children, with regards to the artist staying over, with regards to sculpture, with regards to showing, this was all done inside, which is basically, you know, negative impact for the people on both sides of that piece of property in an R40 zone versus what we have in front of us now. And again, all laudable uses, but it is in an R40 zone with regards to the theaters, the noise level, the summer camps. It changes, as far as I'm concerned, you know, the character of the neighborhood.
Yes.
One other question I have with regards to the after-school activities is that what I don't understand, and I've lived here for 60 some odd years, the Ossining school system, the town of Ossining, the village of Ossining, they have, you know, more outdoor property than they know what to do with. Why would they have to go from the schools to your piece of property via bus, which causes more, environmental issues, and then parents coming to pick them up, when after-school activities should be at their own properties throughout, you know, Ossining?
I can only say that we are here to work with the school district, and they have come to us, as well as myself offering our assistance, to work together. I'm sure that they have a great deal of space and a great deal of smart people working on this problem, and I'm only trying to be part of the solution and not part of the problem. So we're trying to be part of the community, and as wonderful as all the schools are, I didn't know having extra space is a bad thing. I would think it would be a good thing, especially in the days of the corona, when we're going to need socially distanced areas, and as much of them as possible. It's my understanding there's 4,000 students within the school district. I don't think they can all be 6 feet away on what the school in the town has.
Yeah, but they would not be putting these outdoor activities all at one school. You have numerous schools within the village of Ossining that after-school activities, and whether or not you're charging for this and whether or not they're paying a fee, and the school teachers and everything, is that, again, in my estimation, is that if there's going to be any after-school activities, it should be within the school itself, where the schools do have plenty of property, and if it really gets bad, they have auditoriums when it's inclement weather. That's all I'm saying.
I understand what you're saying, sir. And I guess that would be a question that you maybe want to ask Dr. Sanchez.
Yes, I agree. I thought
he's reached out to me specifically to, so we can talk. We've presented a proposal to the school district to help. So I think he might be the next person.
I can see Dr. Sanchez as part of this call.
Oh, is he?
He's here. I was just waiting patiently. So I guess I came.
Hold on a second. When we get to public, we'll have you speak. I really appreciate that. David Kringer, any questions or comments?
Well, yeah, the mentioning of the virus, are you taking any steps towards using masks, that sort of thing?
We have we're having, I'm getting a lot of feedback. We have a protocol that we have put in place.
What the hell's happening?
We have a,
Can you please mute yourself?
Moderator, mute everybody. Time.
we have a protocol that we've put in place that masks are required, except when you're able to be 6 or more feet apart. We have many hand sanitizer stations throughout the building. The reason why we wanted to use the outdoor space is to still be able to be in touch with one another, but be socially distant. I'm going on the idea that masks will be worn at all time. It is a directive from the governor, I believe. So I would go on the idea that the children, as well as any, adult supervision would also be wearing masks. I think that's protocol now. That's going to be the way it goes in the future. Does that answer your question?
Well, yeah, I mean, going on the issue of the health, safety, and welfare of the community, yes.
Right.
That's the appropriate stuff.
Okay, and we would bring in and also do, as of course with temperature checks, we would also bring in, we're in the process now of looking for a sort of high-tech professional cleaning situation. So anything that goes on inside can be disinfected as we go along and not to put other people at risk. I think we're doing everything we can, and then some in the guidelines that the state, CDC, and all the other organizations have presented the public.
All right, thank you.
Just to clarify on that, yeah, you have to have an actual program that you're going to follow per the state requirements. And unfortunately, in their infinite wisdom, the state put the enforcement of all of this through the New York State Building and Fire Code. So they stuck it on the building inspectors to make sure that you have compliance. So what it would involve with any business that's reopening, they have to have a plan showing exactly how they're going to comply with the governor's directives.
Shall I send that plan to you tomorrow?
Nope, you don't have to send it tomorrow. You have to send it, when you're ready to open after everything is done with the zoning board.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Am I not hearing something?
David, real quick while they're figuring out, I just wanted to get one clarification. In all the notes that you sent us, all the information, it's pretty much the programs are lasting anywhere from between 8:30 and 5, somewhere in that time frame. But there is one section here where you put in for further clarity, you put, except where noted, outdoor activities will start no earlier than 8:30 a.m. and end no later than 20 minutes before sunset. As we know, sunset in the summertime can run 8:30, 9 o'clock. And there's a little discrepancy there and I wanted to straighten it out.
Well, I was hoping to be able to, utilize the outdoors at, in an appropriate noise level manner later on in the evening in the summers. It wouldn't be any it wouldn't be any camp or anything like that. Any sort of Oktoberfest, again, would be specific, and that's, I think we have that ending at 4:30, maybe 5. I think it ends at 4 and then an hour to clean up. It was really for the school districts and for the future of not handcuffing us, but I can dial that back. I guess I could probably put together maybe a time sheet type of thing that would say during these months we would shut things down at certain times, not going anywhere past 7 o'clock in the summer.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring it out because pretty much everything we've talked about kind of like ends at 5 o'clock. So now if I get a phone and somebody,
I can make it specific for 7 o'clock.
It'd be better for you so that we understood it, because if somebody sees an activity at 8:30, well, I thought he was going to end at 5:30. So if we had more information as to what exactly you might be interested in running at a later time, it would be great.
I will get that to you in a much more, a more defined and specific manner.
Yeah, that'd be great. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Sandy?
Yes.
What I'd like to do is ask Mr. Lyons these questions that came in from Sandra Premier at 10 Trevino Road, since she doesn't have a computer and a Zoom, to
Yes.
get those questions answered. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Lyons?
Yes.
Thank you. We have one of the residents at 10 Trevino Road, and she could not join us on Zoom, so she had these questions. She wanted to know what is a Quidditch, which I had to look up myself, but I understand what it is, but I like to have it in your terms.
I guess the best way to describe Quidditch would be part dodgeball, part basketball, part tag, part capture the flag.
So it's a game.
Yeah, it's a game.
So it's a numerous number of games within a specific area.
No, it's one game.
Okay.
That just has all of those activities involved in it, and the children are running around on a broomstick.
Right. Okay.
It's a Harry Potter thing.
Right. That's what I said. Thank you so much for that. She asked about the benches are going to be put away on the pathway or removed.
Correct. We've taken that off the table.
Okay.
Anything to do on the trail or on the meditation trail has been removed.
Thank you. She asked about the beehive, but we understand you're putting in for a variance.
Correct.
She wanted to know about the outdoor, out-of-town campers, which I could not find. You're going to have out-of-town campers there?
I believe she must be referring to the River Fund.
Okay.
So
will they be sleeping over or eating in, or they come for the day?
No, they just come for the day.
Okay, thank you.
We're not a sleepover camp.
Right, okay. The Contemplation Willow, how does it operate?
So the Contemplation Willow is really, it's a tree, and it is surrounded by a few large rocks, a few large rocks, where people can just sort of sit and be by themselves and be quiet, or have a quiet conversation with a neighbor. It's just a sitting area. It's probably maybe 15 feet in diameter, surrounded by big rocks.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, so our board doesn't have any questions at this time. We will open it up by hand. And again, it's going to be 3 minutes, and then we'll go on to the next person. So if you get cut off when you're into a salutation, don't take it out on yours truly. We're just doing 3 minutes per person. Okay, Sandy, open it up.
First speaker that has their hand up is Howard Fleischer.
Okay, thank you, Sandy. I appreciate that, and I appreciate the board recognizing me as the first person to make comments here. I just want to, for the record, clarify a couple of things. First of all, can I find out how many of the board members have visited the property, please? Have all board members visited the site?
Yes.
I visited the site and been to activities there as well.
Okay.
Tom Wills, yeah. Tom Wills, yes, a number of times.
Okay. I just wanted for clarification. And then secondly, just as a matter of housekeeping here, is it unreasonable to ask all the board members to be on video for these meetings, whether it's this one or future meetings, or is that something that is not a reasonable request?
Does this have anything to do with this application?
No,
Pleasure? No? So at a different time, and you're wasting your 3 minutes, basically, is that you could take that up with Sandy and/or the town supervisor with regards to open meetings, which I'd love to have, no problem
There's
whatsoever.
everything going for it. Every resource it needs, every incentive to open safely. And their plan has basically not survived first contact with viruses.
Being played on somebody
And
else.
the reason for that is that they're trying to pull this off in a country with a raging outbreak.
We'll ask everybody.
I'm going to mute everybody, and then I'll take Howard off.
I ask you to please add a few minutes back or several seconds back onto my time.
Okay.
Sal, you had mentioned that what goes on inside is not the issue at hand here, and that it's really about what's going on outside. And therefore, I don't understand your points about bringing up the ice cream issue, which is clearly something that's operated inside and not salient to this application. So that's just a point of information, not for discussion. I also want to just say that the noise level that generates from Ryder Park should be very clearly delineated, because when there's ball games and concerts going on in Ryder Park, it may be confused with what might be happening over at Bethany. This is Howard Fleischer. I live at 22 Tavana Road, in case there's a question about that. And I just want to say that it seems like we're splitting a lot of hairs here on something that really is very plain in its intention. And questioning what the school may want to do with the property and what Mr. Lyons has as far as his charter for his nonprofit, I think is off target. I just want to say that from my experience, anything that has been a problem has been addressed by Mr. Lyons and his surrogates. And I just got to say that it really comes off, Sal, where I feel that there's a very negative tone that is being addressed here when you say that there's a lot of outdoor activity, that there is a mischaracterization of things that Mr. Lyons is intending to incorporate all of the outdoor activity or all of his property, which is not the case. And if you go back to the recording, you'll hear what you had said, that you're addressing all of the things that he's addressing for the outdoor activities. Very limited outdoor activities from what I understand here, and very, very restricted to maybe a one-day event. So when it comes to Oktoberfest, et cetera. So I'm gonna leave it at this, where I just feel that this is more of an inquisition. It seems like an inquisition, as opposed to approving something that is a very docile and community benefiting application. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
All right. Dr. Ray Sanchez has his hand up.
All right, good evening, everybody. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I just want to it won't even take 3 minutes. First of all, I know I wrote a letter in support of the application and wanted to make sure I was here publicly to address any questions and answers regarding the connections to the school district. I do want to just also publicly thank David Lyons for the support he's provided regarding the school district, and this too would provide some flexibility in terms of programming and some continued partnerships where we might be able to utilize the spaces in creative ways that otherwise we couldn't do in the context of our schools. I know the question of why we wouldn't do things in our schools, I think we try to maximize the utilization of our spaces. However, keeping in mind that our schools programs, the use of fields and others, is pretty extensive after school, albeit now with COVID, that may or may clearly it's going to have some implications, and less of them might be used. But normally, we're struggling to find field space that could become available through partnerships with organizations like Bethany and others. And not only do we just partner with Bethany, but we partner with a variety of organizations because we think it enhances and enriches the opportunities of our children. So I really just wanted to take a moment to publicly share my, my support, and to the extent that it would help the schools, it has, and I think it would continue to do so moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker, Mark S.
Hi, Mark Schultz, 14 Tavano Road. I'd just like to thank David for his responsive listening to the neighbors, and that he's moved his facilities to outside 100 feet from the neighborhood. I think that was appropriate given what his plans were. I'd like to thank him for, listening and making the changes. That's all I had to say.
Okay, next
You're
speaker
welcome.
is Lorraine Kruslik.
Sandy?
Yeah?
Sal, can I get back to Dr. Sanchez?
Oh, sure. Oh, I think he might have hung up.
Okay, move on.
Next speaker is Lorraine Kruslik.
That's right.
Right.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I live on Cooper Drive, and I just wanted to say that from the beginning, when Bethany put in its application, I was for it. I thought it was a great idea. I've been here for almost 20 years when Maryknoll had all its activities, and it never bothered me. The noise level is irrelevant. I mean, my neighbors, when they have pool parties that go into 10 o'clock at night, are way louder than anything that has ever happened on the grounds. So I think that you're blowing the noise level way out of proportion. And that's all I have to say. I support the application. That's it. Okay.
Next speaker, Robert Melstein.
Hello, Robert Melstein, 25 Stonegate Road. We directly border the Bethany property. Thank you to the board for recognizing me, and Mr. Lyons and his team for doing the additional due diligence, providing the additional research and the revised plan. From this end, it looks pretty reasonable. Just two quick comments. Just regarding the noise, I guess, that the board, I believe it might have been Sal or someone else on the board pointed out, for late night events, the events that might go to dusk, if we just get further clarification on what those may be and the frequency of that. But again, overall, the adjustments seem certainly pretty reasonable. Just to address board and Dr. Sanchez's comments regarding partnering with the Bethany property, regarding schools and additional space. I would echo this. We have a child in Brookside, and to me, all the towns and municipalities, because the state has imposed almost, my opinion, an unreasonable deadline for the districts to supply their reopening plans by the 31st, which are this Friday, and the guidance only came out 2 weeks ago. I would encourage the board and frankly all of the municipality government, all hands on deck, all options on deck for this. Yes, we have a lot of students, and we should look to partner with any organizations, including Bethany, to provide a safe environment if we're going to reopen the schools. If that involves discussions of indoor and even outdoor use, I would just politely request that the board considers any and all options for that. We're in very challenging times, and again, the district has been, the districts are required to get their plans in the 4 days, which is kind of, well, let's just say challenging to say the least. So please consider that if there are these type of options with these partners, that if we need to make some variances to keep the kids safe during COVID, board does that. Thanks, and that's all I've got. Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is Joanne Riley.
Hi, I'm curious about school buses.
We can't hear you, Joanne.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Okay, so I was just wondering, the transportation for the students, the children, will they be coming through buses or what is the plan for that?
Yes, buses.
Okay.
I'm with Joanne. My name is Patricia Suarez, and I live at 31 Somerstown Road, which is directly across the street from Bethany. And my question, I have a few questions. First, when David Lyons said there'll be 50 kids every hour, maximum of 300, is that the camp or the river fund?
My understanding is that that would be the number of patrons coming in during the course of a picnic or Oktoberfest or a theater group.
Okay. Okay, so that's for Oktoberfest. Now, the River Fund, how many children will be coming for that River Fund?
Can I answer that?
Go ahead, Mr. Lyons.
I was going to say, we've offered 10 scholarships, and with a situation that it came to us, there was a brother of one of the participants who desperately wanted to go, so we made it 11. But we would look to keep it between 10 and 15, which would also leave plenty of room for any local children to get scholarshiped.
Okay, and also the camps that you're offering, how often do these camps meet? Do they meet every week, every day?
We would hope to have a total of 6 weeks of summer camp during July and August. And again, I would not be going back to the board to ask for more as far as number of weeks, because Bethany needs time to wind down, clean up, and prepare for any next events. So regardless of the popularity and how successful that the camps would be, it would be no more than 6 weeks.
And how many kids would the camp have? How many children would attend the camps?
Hopefully in the future, the maximum number of children per day would be 50. Right now, we're at 32.
And when do these camps, when would they start?
None of them would start earlier than 8:30, and they would be finished up by 4. I think the overall activities, which would be the people cleaning up after the camp and everything, but the kids would be gone no later than 4 o'clock on the camps.
Okay, and they would start when, in June, like June?
July, probably. It would be generally summer camp time, which is generally the first week of July through mid-August.
Oh, okay. So it'd be like 4 weeks, that's it, or 4 or 6 weeks?
6 weeks, 6 weeks, beginning of July through mid-August.
And the activities, Mr. Lyons, would it be indoor and outdoor, both?
Yes.
Or everything's outdoor?
No, it would be both. So you would not be having
Indoor and outdoor.
Yeah, you would not be having like 50 kids in one group. They would be broken up into smaller groups.
Right. Yeah. So the buses, you know, if everybody's going to be transported with buses, it's across the street from your driveway. So there'll be lots of traffic and buses in and out. I'm assuming. I mean, that's all I'm.
The buses would come in play for the after school programming and any maybe during school programming that we would coordinate with the school district. Because of the size of the driveway, we have a bus area for 2 buses to pull up and let kids off. Because of the size of the driveways, there would be no interference on the traffic, because we would be, you know, have plenty of room to let the kids off and do their thing. They wouldn't be interfering.
And can I ask you a question, Mr. Lyons? Do you live on the property? Is that where you live?
No, I live in Sleepy Hollow.
I see. But you would be the person managing everything, right?
I am. I'm the
Would you be
executive
the person
director.
managing? Right, okay.
Your 3 minutes are over. Could we
Okay.
go on to the next speaker or? The next speaker is Henry Welt.
Hi, good evening. My name's Henry Welt, and I live at 2 Oak Hill Terrace in the village of Ossining. I'm, as a member of the public, I wanted some clarification, if you would, as to the process that the board will apply to consider the application. And the reason I'm asking for it is because I think, at least to my ears, the questions from various board members suggest different criteria, even contradictory criteria. Mr. Whitlinger suggested earlier that maybe the application ought to be made in terms of, I think, what he called up-leveling the descriptions, which I understand to mean that an application would be filed to say we're not going to have more than a certain number of people, won't be closer to the border than a certain distance, won't have certain noise levels, won't operate at various times a day. I think that's what up-leveling means. And yet the chair's questions, particularly those questions about the nonprofit or the for-profit activities that are supposedly engaged in both inside and outside, suggest that when we adjourn the public session, the board is going to be considering stuff that I have no idea why they would consider. Is the idea here that the board is going to have stricter rules for what a nonprofit is than the IRS? The IRS allows 20% of the revenue for a nonprofit to come from for-profit causes because it recognizes that nonprofits need money to live. So is the board in the town of Ossining going to create a stricter standard for a nonprofit than the IRS? So that question is directed to the board.
The decision that this board will make and the instructions that I'll give to my board members will not be based on emotion or by popular vote. It'll be based on the actual facts of a current R40 zone, that in a special permit area, we have the right to ask questions and get more input to see what fits in an R40 zone. That's why there were various questions, and with regards to the number of kids, with regards to noise, whether it's indoor or outdoor, those are all part of the zoning requirements that this board has to take into consideration and not just go by the seat of our pants and say, yes, this is all absolutely a great thing, let's just go do it, because it sets a precedence in an R40 zone. And again, there are 5 members of a board. They will make their own decision based on how they interpret the zoning code.
So is there any basis I don't know the zoning code, so I'm deferring to you, Mr. Chairman. Is there any basis in the zoning code to be interested in whether activities are for-profit or non-profit? If the overall activities of the organization are qualified to be non-profit by the IRS?
I think our attorney answered that question.
I don't think so.
The authorized use is a not-for-profit philanthropic institution. So that was the special permit use that was authorized in 2016. And so this board, as part of the application, is looking at whether these additional proposed uses fit within that authorized special permit use. So that was the input.
So what I'm trying to understand is, if the IRS continues to approve the organization as a qualified 501c3, does the board, in your opinion, have any basis to say that the activities are not qualified and therefore disqualifying?
I don't think it says in the code that it has to be a 501c3. I think that the code is pretty general, and so it gives the board the discretion to look at the use. You know, there could be nonprofits that don't fit within the criteria of a 501c3, but they wouldn't necessarily be precluded from that use in the zoning code. It's broad, and so this board is being asked to look at these uses within the confines of that special permit, and fact finding is part of it, and so that's what they're trying to do. And the chair was asking certain questions, and Mr. Whitlinger was asking certain questions, and it's not to say one isn't relevant. They're just looking at it from a different perspective. But there are 5 board members.
Well,
board will be deliberating in public, and they will have to consider the factors that are in the code that authorize this use.
Well, how is anyone supposed to apply for a variance if there are no public consistent standards that tell us what you would accept for these activities to go forward, or what kinds of activities you would accept?
This isn't a variance, first of all. There are statutory criteria for a variance. This is a special permit, which is very unique to the specific use. It's very fact specific.
But the facts would relate to the quality of the activities, not whether they are for profit or not, is my thought.
I've already answered that question. That's my legal opinion. And if you want to take up the rest of your 3 minutes.
No, I think I'll give up the, I think it's obvious what's going on.
Okay, the next speaker is Steve Wardwell.
Yeah, 2 W's, 2 L's. 14 Ramapo Road. You know, I don't have a dog in this hunt, but you know, I was interested. I'd seen something on the last meeting. You know, I appreciate the board has a responsibility to examine this in great detail, and I appreciate everything they've done in that regard. I also think that the purpose of the zoning board is to approve uses for the benefit of the community. And I think net, we haven't heard anyone say that the activities that have gone on or the activities that are planned are not for the net benefit of the community. And so to me, the variance seems like a no-brainer, knowing what the organization is. Just a few other points. As a father of a kid, as a person who doesn't care much for sports myself, and raising a son who didn't care much for sports, when you talk about all the space at the schools, there's a lot of athletic fields. That's true. There isn't a lot of outdoor space for activities that are artistic or cultural in nature. And so I think that there's a real need for that. I think when my son was growing up, outside of the schools, there was a dearth of opportunities in this community for cultural activities. And so we had to go down to our wealthier southern neighbors to find the kinds of activities that we needed for our son. And if we can bring that into this community, that's also a net good for the community. So I'm not sure what the objections are. I can understand if neighbors are concerned. I lived very near Roosevelt School, baseball all summer. To me, the sound of kids running around and having fun is beautiful and not an annoyance. And I would not see why the board would refuse this application. That's it. Thanks.
There's no other speakers with their hand up posted.
I believe Donna Sharrett does.
Oh, Donna, yes. Donna Sharrett, I'm sorry.
Hi, Donna Sharrett, 84 Morningside Drive. Can I just ask with the beekeeping, would that be a separate public hearing? The variance for that? What?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, because my concern, and probably it would be easy to address for Mr. Lyons, because it's is that it's something that's going to be discussed with the town board, and I think there's a lot to discuss with it, because beekeeping is great, but there's a lot of conditions that should be considered, and one of which is that Bethany Arts is almost completely surrounded by suburban properties where there's very little for the bees to eat and a lot of toxic chemicals. So there's things to consider. It's certainly not in the middle of a utopian landscape from a bee's perspective. So, but I think that's something that could be resolved, and by doing big plantings that would be beneficial, and maybe Mr. Lyons would consider that going forward. So thank you.
My recommendation, you still there, Ms. Sharrett?
Yes.
My recommendation is twofold. Number one is that Mr. Lyons is, as I understand it, putting in for a zoning variance, which I haven't seen yet. And number two is that the town of Ossining is looking to change their ordinance with regards to zoning, and I think you should definitely be at both and give your input, since you're well-founded with regards to this. I think the town board would welcome your input and educational background and what they should be looking at before they change any zoning ordinance for the town itself. And even though two wrongs don't make a right, it's one thing to have something in writing that is not allowed, and it's another thing to just go do it until you get caught. So any input that you could render with regards to the town board and their new ordinance, and waiting to find out what and if Mr. Lyons is doing on his zoning variance for bees that still has to come to us, will be a separate issue completely. But thank you.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you. Sandy, anybody else?
We have Beth's iPad. Beth?
Hi, yeah, you guys can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay, good evening, everybody. I got some questions for Mr. Lyons. I guess the first thing I have a question about is back to the contemplation willow with rocks in contemplation. Is that something that you're asking for?
That's just an area that is on the site plan. So that is, it's a tree that was existing, and I put some rocks around it that were in the ground.
Right, so you're not asking for it, it's there. You're not asking to do anything different. It already exists there, correct?
Correct, correct.
Okay, so is there a reason why that's now just added to the plan?
Because I think we were, as far as the site plan, we were trying to be as detailed as possible.
Okay, all right. Next question, back to stage. You said that, I didn't write it down, didn't take notes. Your ballpark size of that stage will be what?
I forget exactly what I said. But
Ballpark, ballpark.
I mean, I think there was a 10 by 16, did I say?
Okay, I will come measure it, I promise, unless
yeah,
it's way past 10 by 16.
The platforms that we have come in 3-foot sections. So it would probably be maybe 12 by 15.
Okay, all right. And you said there are no walls, there's no back to it. It's just going to be a flat,
there's going to be
raised
some
stage.
railing. No, there's going to be some railing around the edge to make sure people don't fall off.
Okay, fair enough. All right. Okay. I might have missed it, but is there a proposal of exactly quantity of how many kids in total in all the proposed camps, et cetera, that you're going to be doing in that July-ish, August time?
So it would be a maximum of 300 kids over the 6 weeks. And that's if we grow to the size that I hope to grow to, which would be
300. Oh, okay.
50
Go
kids
ahead.
a week over 6 weeks.
50, okay, it's 50 kids a week. Okay, so you're not expecting to have 300 children at one time on that property because it's not that big.
No, no.
Okay, I
Not-
mean, I know
not
it's
300.
large and it's
It would be
spatial, but it's,
50. Right. No, I agree with you 100%. It's too small for that.
okay.
It would be 50 kids at camp at the maximum. Again, I don't want to lose the message and what we can give to the kids, and with too many kids, that happens.
Right. Okay. So I think, David, a lot of where I'm coming from this is experience on the last few years, seeing things happen that weren't supposed to happen back there. And so I have my cockles up because now I'm looking for what else is going to happen, and give an inch, sometimes take a yard. And I really don't see that the board's handcuffing you, which is what you said before. I thought that was pretty aggressive. I actually applaud Sal and parts of the board I do applaud you too for what you're doing, but I also do applaud them for trying to, what I think is a necessity of pinning you down to exacts. You have some very beautiful ideas, but they're pie in the sky. And I just think they really need to pin you down, which was in the letter initially I sent last month to them, was lots of this stuff sounds great, but don't let him just do whatever he wants back there without monitoring, because I don't know what's going to happen back there. There were a few people that gave some positive responses to you, one being the school district, Ray Sanchez. I hear what he's saying, but the noise, the lights at night, all the things that have happened over the last few years, he hasn't been part of that. And this guy, Steve, who says there's a net benefit, he also isn't in the backyard, because basically where you've moved your west is fine, and that makes the sense for the people that are to the east of it, but I'm smack dab right in your backyard. So whatever happens where you're putting it hugely impacts me.
Could you
And I just, go ahead. Yeah.
Could you just remind me of your address?
6 Tavano Road, and I am Beth Cohen.
Right. No, okay.
All right, and we've spoken before about trees and things, and it didn't happen for me, and it's not a perfect world. So, I'm really just asking the board to pin you down. I think.
Planted a tree in the area that you had expressed.
Well, I even had responded to your email. Don't bother, because one tree's not going to do anything. I need to actually put some major landscaping back there, but that's going to be my problem. That's not your problem anymore. So I mean, I guess, and the only other thing that I saw on the plan, I'm just curious that I don't know whether it was the court or the stage, but it appeared like it might be kind of on top of where your part of your overflow parking is going to be. Are you covering any of that? Is it just all jamming together over there?
No, none of it's being covered, because as I expressed to the planning board, and I believe to the zoning board, that we wouldn't do anything over there just for that fact that if we needed to grow in the future, that would become overflow parking. So there'll be nothing permanent there.
Okay.
As I expressed earlier, the stage is a modular stage. For the Artoberfest, it would be on the north side of the property, the Tavano Road side property, but it would be past the 100-foot buffer zone and facing Cooper Drive.
Okay, cool. All right, like David, I hate to be the thorn in your side. I don't want to be. I think what you're doing is an incredible thing. I just think it just has to be really pinned down, like exactly what you're doing back there. So
I'm sorry, the 3 minutes are up, Beth.
Okay, thank you, Sandy. Thank you, David. Appreciate it.
If you can take a look at our filing, you'll see a lot more details. Of what we've tried to present tonight was a much more detailed account of what would be going on.
All right, because what I got in the mail is a letter from you that kind of, well, my time's up, so okay, we're good.
You have to go on the website, on the Town of Austin Zoning Board website.
Okay, thank you.
We don't have any more hands up unless they're repeats.
Okay.
Abby Lewis?
Yes, so good evening, everyone. This is Abby Lewis, and I am new to the Bethany community. I started July 1st as managing director and have been coming up to speed on this process. And I hope, Beth, when you look at our submission more recently, that you'll see that it is, I believe, quite detailed, and we did try to make sure we paid attention to every complaint, to every issue that was raised, and really tried to be as thoughtful as we could in making sure we were very deliberate in our responses to give you a better sense of what we're doing. But because I am new to this process, Mr. Chairman, what would really be helpful to me is to understand what the process is going forward from here. What the next steps are, and how we can bring this to a favorable closure.
I could answer that to a degree, basically. The next step is going to be closing the public hearing. Then the board this evening, and I'll take a vote from the board whether or not we're going to be just discussing this tonight or coming back in another couple of weeks to discuss it in front of everyone again. This is all transparent. No matter what we say, will be seen or heard by anybody and everybody. I'm going to recommend to the board that each one of the categories that BAC has basically asked for be voted on individually other than as a package, so that there may be some give and take in each one of the areas. And if we reach a consensus this evening or whenever, I would ask the town attorney to do a memo that will basically outline anything and everything that may or may not be put into the special permit, so that there's no guessing in the future with regards to what you're allowed to do and not allowed to do. And hopefully with regards to that, and since this is a special permit, my recommendation is going to be to coincide with the current indoor permit. And yes, that means in another, whether 18 months or close to 2 years, you'll be back in front of us again for a renewal of this permit. And hopefully, depending on what is approved or disapproved, and depending on what the neighbors have to say over the period of 18 months or till the expiration of this current special permit, we would give an additional 2 years or 3 years or 5 years. I don't enjoy this any more than anybody else coming and doing this. I rather give, in perpetuity, but it doesn't happen that way. And especially with all the infractions that we've listened to since BAC, took hold of this piece of property. It's very disheartening just to go say, yes, let's go do this, and find out that everything that we said you can't do, you're doing. So I'm hoping that we just move forward and do it on a permit basis, because it is still a special permit in an R40 zone. This is not just, an amendment to a zoning code. We're just a special permit. That's what this is about. In normal cases, someone comes to us for a 10-foot yard variance because they're putting up a garage or a deck. That's something in perpetuity. That's completely different than a special permit and what BAC is asking for in this piece of property.
All right, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for explaining that. I would like, I've been on the property now, I realize only on a daily basis since July 1st, but I really do welcome everybody, the zoning board members, but everybody, come by, spend some time on our property. It is remarkably quiet. and peaceful. And I understand that times are a little different at this moment, but there is a fair amount of space there. So I really encourage people who have not been to our property to come and to see it for yourself and experience for yourself. And then the other thing I'd like to just say is I think it was Mr. Krieger who asked about our COVID safety plan. And I just want to assure you that we have very carefully looked at the New York Forward requirements, the CDC requirements, everything we need to do. We've created a very, quite frankly, cautious and careful, our own 4-step plan with a view that each step of the way, we need to make sure that we are comfortable, that we can keep our community safe. And so we've been doing this in a staged way, and we've made everybody understand that if at any time we think that we can't keep our community safe, we'll make a change. We have required the board members, we have required others who are coming onto our premises just to read the processes, the requirements, and to acknowledge and attest that they are going to comply. We have attested to the New York State as well that we have plans in place. So, you know, we love our community. Bethany loves the community so much, they put it in their name. And so protecting our community is really what we're about. And I think you'll be, I think you'll see that we've actually been more cautious than what we're required. And with that, I appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Sandy? Sandy? Hello?
Yes, I don't.
Yes, Jim.
I don't see anybody signaling with their hand up right now.
Okay, so Jim has a question.
Yeah, I'm afraid I don't think video is working for me unless there's a miracle happening here.
Well, we hear you.
Thank you. Sal, just one suggestion procedurally, which I've put in front of you and just see if you agree. The way you're proposing to divide up the approvals, it seems to me that we could reasonably lump together the first 3 items in the overview that's been provided by Bethany, since they are all camp-centric. And the question is whether or not this camp will meet the legal requirements of the statute. And so rather than going through a kind of a repeated litany of justifications or other concerns about each of those, could we just put those first 3 together? That is the arts-based educational summer camp, the outdoor children's theater camp, and the river fund.
All right, Jim, we'll talk about that after we finish with the public hearing, which I'd like to make a motion since there's no others online. I'd like to have a motion to...
I move it.
Second?
Second.
Okay, so the public hearing is now over. I'll talk to the board now with Chrissy and Sandy. And
Sal,
yeah.
did we have to take a quick, just procedurally, did we have to take a vote there?
Just to cut to
Yeah, just all those in favor.
Yeah.
there's no vote on the public hearing. We took a vote. It was second.
Yeah, so all those in favor.
We got to pass the motion.
Aye.
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 I let the record show that it's unanimous, that its public hearing is now over. Chrissy, is that okay?
Yep.
Okay, so we have in front of us now And I want to ask the board if they're comfortable or they want to reschedule something in 2 weeks. You want to go over this evening, and this is transparent, it's open, nobody can make any comments, it's just us talking. I think from Chrissy's point of view, I understand what Jim is saying, but I think going forward, no matter how we vote, is that there has to be a real full understanding for Chrissy to draft up what our resolutions are going to be specifically. And just like, you know, Dave has said, and the rest of the board members, like Jim, and including myself, basically, is maybe the hours, maybe the number of children. Definitely, I'm going to require that whatever permit is granted this evening, if it is granted this evening, is going to coincide with the current special permit that expires with the indoor permit, so that we get a flavor of the next year and a half or 2 years of how we're doing at that site, and the number of comments or questions or complaints that may or may not come in from the neighborhood. And again, like I said before, is that, yeah, the decisions that we make, and I appreciate what Chrissy tried to explain to some of the patrons, is that, yeah, this is not based on emotion. Everybody can get emotional. You can get 100 letters coming in saying this is the best thing since apple pie or ice cream made at the site, whatever. And it's not by popular demand. It is basically what we have to follow on the actual facts of the current zoning ordinances and the guidelines that we have to implement. All of what they want to do is absolutely fantastic. Should it be in an R40 residential zone under a special permit? That's the simple question. And that's why I think that we should, I don't have a problem, and I'll leave it up to the board. If you want to combine arts-based education, outdoor children theater, and River Fund all into one, I don't have a problem with that. It's up to the board.
So I think the reason to break it down into uses is, and I don't necessarily disagree, obviously it's up to the board how you want to handle it, but given that there are several different uses at play here, it's possible that the board may not agree on every single one of them. So voting on them separately was a way to have a mechanism so that, if one board member disagrees with one use, they don't vote against the entire application. So by breaking it down, it allows for board members to have some flexibility on how they vote with individual uses.
That's the way I was looking at it, basically, because I think it could massage each one of them. I mean, the questions that we had were answered with regards to the max number of children at one time per day as what was written, and what we may want to decide on, especially taking into consideration it is a residential zone. Also taking into consideration that it's for 6 weeks in the summertime. So I think that's a good way of doing it. I don't, the Art Oktoberfest and outdoor school programs, I think, are two separate issues. I think the issue with regards to what John Hamilton said to sundown, I have a real problem with that into 7:30 in the evening, and especially in a special permit in an R40 zone that you're still going to come home from work and have something going on in your backyard until 7:30. But that's something that should be discussed by everybody. So if it's okay with all concerned, I'd like to go down one by one.
So I guess I'm a little bit unclear, but let me see if I could offer. One is I do know that the school, as Ray Sanchez brought to the table, and as others I think have also raised, if we don't address the school issue tonight, if we don't address the after-school programs tonight, then that does put the school in a bind with regards to being able to complete their plans this week. And that's, without that, I believe that's true. Dave Lyons can confirm this, but without that decision being made this evening, then the school potentially has to move ahead with their school planning for the fall without the Bethany Arts Center being a resource available to them, which may or may not be the decision of the board at this time, but there's a time constraint to that one, I believe. Is that true?
I understood that from what everybody said, that I think it's this Friday. And again, I'm only one vote, and I'll just say that I don't want to be pushed into making a decision because there's 4 days left. And number two is that part of my thinking on this, because this is a completely different application as what the planning board reviewed for all indoor use. Now this is all outdoor use. And I'm going to request that the planning board take another look and update with all of this information and see what they have to say. I don't think camps can take place over the next couple of weeks because of COVID. And this is really being set up for next year. And even if we voted tonight, by the time Chrissy gets this all done, and we have another meeting, which I'm going to require in a couple of weeks to go over everything that she is writing up so that there's no misinterpretation of anything and everything of what Mr. Lyons is allowed to do or not allowed to do if we vote in favor of any of these items, that I don't think the timeline basically is going to be met.
Well, if we were to vote tonight, with regards to after-school activities, and granted, there would have to be, Christy would have to have the time to write something up, but obviously the school would have knowledge that a decision had been made, and so they would have an ability to contemplate what to do with that decision for this fall, and certainly the parents of the community and the students of the community could have some assurance that there would be some space available for those activities. Clearly, it would take more time to put the legal documents in place to fully substantiate the decision. But if there was a decision made this evening, that would help the community and the school planning.
And if we move forward with the planning department bringing their input in, that's not going to happen in 4 days. Because again, this is a completely different application that was approved by the planning board for all indoor activities.
So then let's have that conversation, because this is the first that I've heard that we might be sending the applicant back out and asking them to circle back around to the planning department. So
no, it's not the first time, because the last time around, I mentioned that I think we discussed a planning board, even though Mr. Lyons said, well, he has approval for 92 spaces. And that's fine. And it was all, negative declaration for all indoor activities. And the other comment that I made with regards to a traffic study was that maybe, since this is a state road, is that a traffic study, because of all of the outdoor activities as compared to what was approved for indoor artists and after-school activities indoor, would affect that area.
So what is the criteria then for Christy, can you help us out? What's the criteria for sending something back to the planning board?
So I think what we have to look at right now is what's before this board. You had a public hearing on the special permit. You closed the public hearing. So the building inspector, when it determined that what the applicant was doing did not comply with their special permit, did not send them back to the planning board. They sent them, the building inspector sent them to this board for an amended special permit. So if in the future the building inspector determines they have to go back for amended site plan approval, that they'll have to do that or pursue their appropriate remedies. But I think at this point, the board should go forward with making a decision with what's before it. And if you're concerned about the traffic study that was submitted to the planning board as being a basis for their capacity, we can certainly, for any approval the board were inclined to grant, we could link any capacity on the site for Oktoberfest or any other sort of event to the maximum capacity that was contemplated as part of that traffic study. But I don't really know how we go back to planning point in time.
Has the entire board read the traffic study?
Can I jump in here a minute?
Yes, John.
Yeah, I can tell you that if you approve outdoor activities, more than likely it's going to be sent to the planning board, because the site plan does not show anything about food trucks. It doesn't show about where school buses are going to come in. It doesn't show where the stage is going to be. There's nothing, zero on it for outdoor activities. So I would be required, I would have to send it to the planning board for site plan amendment. They would then determine via the planner if they actually need a site plan amendment or not. More than likely they will, but it would ultimately be the planner's responsibility once I refer it to her.
That answers that question, I think.
If I could,
Jim, we can't hear you.
all right, here you go. In the original application, were not buses included as part of the application for bringing anyone in?
But Jim, I can't answer that off the top of my head because I don't have the site plan in front of me, but I can tell you with absolute certainty that there was no site plan approval showing food trucks, showing a stage, or showing any other activity that was occurring outside. So it has to be determined by the planner, which I would suspect is going to need to have a site plan amendment made on this.
Can I say something?
The original resolution did contemplate buses.
Yes, it did. We have space.
Well,
Obviously, because there's parking.
Walking. Yeah.
Yes, I think that it's overkill, John. It is talking about a small stage that's 6 inches off the ground. I mean, we're looking for reasons to extend this unreasonably. I'd like to make a motion.
I meant that remark, number one, because I don't work that way, Jim, just so you understand that. What I do is look at a site plan. That's what I look at. I don't look at anything past that. I refer it to the planner to determine whether or not it needs an amendment.
Jim, I think you're overstepping our boundaries with regards to what the responsibilities and duties of the building inspector is. And no matter how we vote tonight, if he feels it has to go to the planning department, then it has to go to the planning department.
Well, I guess, Sal, with all due respect, I think that the board has the authority to take the additional activities that are being requested here and apply the criteria within the ordinance for a special permit to those activities and reach a conclusion.
I disagree with you, and I'm not an attorney, so I leave it up to Chrissy.
Well, I think one way or another, I would like to see the board adopt a prepared written resolution. However, I need guidance from the board as to how to prepare that. So if the board wanted to go forward for the reasons stated by Dave Whitlinger and Jim and vote so that there's some clarity to the public and the applicant, subject to my drafting a formal resolution with findings and conditions that the board will vote on, which will be your final approval, that could be a potential option for the board if the majority of the board feels that way.
Sal, I'm prepared to make a motion if that's, if you think that's in order.
I'm not in favor of it due to the fact that I think the building inspector has to do what his job responsibility is.
But by
we're not
voting
in
on it,
favor.
that doesn't circumvent the requirement or the potential requirement for it to go back to the planning board.
Right.
Is that correct?
I think it seems like from what John is saying, that'll be determined based upon this board's decision.
Right. Until you make a decision as to what exactly is going to go on out there, then we make a determination whether or not I refer it to the planner to see if it needs a site plan amendment. Again, there was no activities on the approved for outdoors, nothing. Now we're approving possibly activities, and we need to know on the site plan where things are going to be set up.
Well,
I would be prepared to vote tonight.
I would also.
I would also.
To me, it makes sense that the planning board see, what, the input of the zoning board.
What's going to happen basically is we're going to vote, and no matter what we vote on here, there's a complete change of the exterior of that site. Like John said, complete change. And whether it's the Arts-Based Education Summer Camp, Outdoor Children Theater, River Fund, Oktoberfest, the Vegetable Garden, and the outdoor school programs, none of that is on the original. So I have to assume that even if we agreed to all of it, it's going to have to be sent to the planning department to give their input on it. But I'm ready to vote on each one of these items.
So I would just kind of add one thing. We talked a little bit about, when we started to talk about the criteria, whether it be number of kids, number of vehicles, that we also include the number of food trucks in that criteria. And then there's one other item, which the extents of the activities on the site are fairly well spelled out by the 100-foot setback, but there's one edge which is defined by a tree line. And I think that would be better suited to have that defined by dimensional criteria, because I think a tree line is open to interpretation, and kind of identifying what a dimension would be, so that in the future there's not a question about what's the extent of the allowed activities.
David, so you want a distance from the property line?
Right. It kind of having been on the the site and tried to stand there and visualize what's defined as the tree line. It's shown as a straight line, and then it kind of arcs back. That I think sort of for clarification and to be memorialized that have a dimension.
For tonight's vote, David, would it be sufficient to refer it to as drawn on the plan?
I would say that, and then you can see where it is kind of relative to adjacent property lines, but that there's a dimension put at some point on it before a final resolution.
Yep.
Okay, so is everybody on board to start talking about art-based educational camp, and then we'll go down the list?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, yes.
Okay. So
I would move that we approve the arts-based educational summer camp usage.
And I would like to make a recommendation that the art-based educational summer camp should be approved, but it should be no more than 30 children at 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And if a couple of years from now he wants to come up and boost that number, that's okay. But I'd like to get a better feel for how that goes.
I'm sorry.
I'd like to, on the art-based educational summer camp.
What's the basis for changing the hours, Sal?
I'd like to, because it's a residential zone.
Well, what's the difference between 3 p.m. and 4 p.m.?
I'm requesting, and you could change it any which way, I'd like to have it 10 to 3. If it's 10 to 4, or if it's 9 to 3, come up with it. I just feel since it is a residential zone, that especially in the summertime for 6 weeks, there should be some relaxation Monday through Friday for the residents that live there.
I just, I don't understand the
And I
timing,
think
but,
part of the earlier hours is related to parents getting to work and being able to drop their kids off prior to work. So I would advocate for keeping the 8:30 portion of it.
I don't have a problem with that.
and I would also say, you know, the 4 p.m. probably fits into the same argument that Mr. O'Neill just made.
I would agree with both of those last sentiments that would move that we amend Sal's conditions to 8:30 to 4 p.m. And with occasional Saturday shows for parents.
Agreed.
We're only talking about summer camp right now, not Saturday shows.
I thought it was in there.
That's for the outdoor children's theater camp.
Yeah,
that it indicates Saturday performances.
So
let's move forward.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Someone have a second?
Sorry,
Second.
okay, sorry, can I just want to make sure I'm being completely clear here. So we're saying 8:30, I think the application said 8:30 to 4:30.
No, it says 8:30 to
8:30 to 4, with a
Okay.
maximum of 50 camps. We're saying 8:30 to 4, and how about giving me a number?
Right, yeah.
Maximum, as David said, he would lower it.
I would, Sal, you said 30. I would move that we bring that to 40, so that we have a reasonable window for him to operate in.
Okay.
And
So I think this is simple as Jim just said. I think it's as written on the document submitted by David Lyons and BIC, with only a modification of being 40 campers instead of 50 campers.
Fine. Second?
Second.
And this is subject to me preparing a resolution with findings and conditions that this board will adopt at their next meeting.
Right. And it will be up to John after he reads all of this or beforehand, knowing what we're doing, to send it to the planning department if he sees fit. Let's go on to the outdoor children's theater.
Sorry, was there a final vote?
I'm sorry?
Was there a final vote on that?
Well, unanimous.
I think we have to.
Okay, yeah, and I just,
I think we have to call for the vote, right? Those in favor?
all those in favor? Yeah.
Aye.
Aye.
Outdoor children's theater camp?
I move that we approve it as written.
I second it.
I change it down to 40 campers.
I would agree with that.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Sandy, can you turn off Mr. Fleischer's video, please?
Okay, so Christy, I think we're on second one. Outdoor children's theater camp approved, or the motion is to approve as written with the amendment of 40 instead of 30, or instead of 50.
Sorry
That's
about
correct.
that, thank you. Okay.
Okay.
Unanimous
So
vote.
Aye.
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 River Fund?
I move that we approve it as written.
So the 10 to 20 children here are already folded into the numbers of the children's camp and the arts-based camp.
So it's 40 children then. Or you
Yeah,
can-
The last sentence reads, the campers of Riverfront are included in the above number of 50.
Right.
So that would
Right.
say the campers of Riverfront are included in the above number of 40.
40.
Correct. Yes.
Now,
Okay.
I would add the condition that the campers be ages 8 to 13, as stated in the application.
Agreed.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Oktoberfest.
I move that we approve as written.
I would just add language on the maximum number of the food trucks.
What's your suggestion, David?
In one of the other narratives, which highlights kind of the hourly activities, it has a range of 2 to 4, and the site plan shows 4. So I would be okay with the 4 as long as it's memorialized.
I'm in favor of that.
I agree.
Agree.
Can I just add that there, per the application, that no musical elements would be performed outdoors in an effort to protect the neighbors.
Could we not be so restrictive and perhaps it's amplified or some other descriptor?
Agreed. So no amplified musical elements will be performed outdoors.
I'm in favor of that.
Okay.
And then I guess clarification on the sunset provision for the
Yes,
Oktoberfest.
I am completely against it. I'm only one vote, but everything should be finished with these special occasions by 6 p.m.
I think our Oktoberfest was already going to be done earlier for the application.
I think it listed 6:30.
Yeah, 6:30.
It says 6:30 and then it says sunset as John brought into play, and that's 7:30, 8.
But it would also
And Mr. Lyons said he wants to do as much as he can outdoor during the daylight.
But this one's in the fall, Sal. This one's not in the summer.
Right.
Okay.
But I think that's one of the events that would take a longer amount of time to break it down and conclude, even if the public has left at a certain point. So I think it should all be wrapped up by a defined time frame.
I agree. So.
Right.
Wrapped up by
6:30?
7? Sorry.
7 p.m. seems reasonable.
7 p.m.
Okay.
Outdoor after-school programs.
I'm sorry. So
Was there
back
a
up.
motion on that?
Do we have a second?
Yes.
Christy, do you have all the
Second.
details you need?
So maximum of 4 food trucks, no amplified music outdoors, and everything will be broken down and wrapped up for the evening by 7 p.m.
Correct.
Yeah. And I guess that also means, just for BAC's thoughts, is that they're not working past 7 p.m., but that might mean they take the following day to finish cleaning up if necessary. Like, it's not like somehow you've got to like miraculously have everything restored in a short period of time.
No, we would shut things down at 7 o'clock regardless and come back the next day if necessary.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So do we have a second on that?
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. Last one. I
Well,
move
you
that we
have,
approve it.
The easy one is the vegetable garden. I have no problem with the vegetable garden. It's still in there, Mr. Lyons, right?
Yes, it's been turned into raised beds within
Yep.
the orchard. So
All right, so for Chrissy, raised beds. All in favor?
Was there a second?
Aye. Okay, unanimous.
Okay, Sal moved. David Whitlinger, did you second?
Sure.
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No, shall we go back and catch outdoor after-school programs?
After-school programs?
I move to approve it as written.
That's a maximum of 30 students. When you say,
Correct.
Mr. Lyons, 30 students per program, how many programs?
We are talking the after-school program.
Yes.
We are thinking at the most 4. There would be 4 days a week.
Is that 30 per program?
Yes, per program. So it would be 30 kids 4 times a week.
Total 30 or 30 per program?
Per program.
So that's.
Mr. Lyons, you don't mean 120 children at one time, do you?
No, I mean 30 children at one time per program. Each program would be on a separate day. So we'd have 30 people Monday, 30 kids Tuesday, 30 kids Thursday, 30 kids Friday. Something
Okay.
like that.
I move that we approve as written.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so Chrissy, draft it. John, you know the flavor of what we just approved. Do you have to wait for Chrissy to type it up and give it to us in 2 weeks?
Yeah, I think I need to get a feeling, even if I deal with you alone, Chrissy, just to understand what's happening, and then I can forward it over to Valerie to see if we can move this quickly.
Okay.
Chrissy, could I just make one request, and that is that in your write-up, that you mention the effort that this board went to modify the request from the applicant in order to address the needs and desires of the neighbors, and particularly with regard to.
And this coincides with the current permit that's in place.
Agreed.
Agreed. And I do
Yes,
apologize.
this is amending that current permit.
I
You need a
apologize.
vote on
I'm going
that,
to have to
Chrissy?
drop from the meeting.
Chrissy, do you need a vote on that?
No, because that's what the application is for. There's
Okay,
current
fine.
the approval in place, and that's what this application for, is to amend it for those specific uses this board just voted on.
Okay.
Dave, what did you say?
I apologize. I'm doing some work in Asia. I've got to jump to another meeting now. It's going to be a long night. So if we could adjourn, I'd appreciate it.
May I have a motion to adjourn?
Sal, may I just raise one point? That is, when we want the applicant to return to renew this approved application. I think did you mention 2 years?
It's going to be whatever the date is currently.
When it was reapproved last
October
renewal, I believe it was for another 3-year term. They have 2 years and change left on that. So that term will remain in place.
That's fine with me. Thank you.
Okay.
Good night. Thank you, Dave, Jim, and Tom. Thank you.
I move that we adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
Second.
All in favor.
Thank you.
Say hi to Xi Jinping.
Thanks, Tom.